Hello students of class 12th, how are you all? I hope all of you are doing fine, and I also hope that all of you are giving right amount of attention towards your studies, which is extremely important. Well, I will today very quickly move towards the video, and the today's video I'm trying to interpret first two stanzas of the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, which happens to be the second poem of a textbook Flamingo. I'm carrying the textbook with me. Please, if possible, you have the hard copy, sit with the textbook along as you're listening to this particular video. Keep a pencil and a notebook with you, and also keep on taking notes as I'm talking to you. This particular poem has been written by Stephen Spender. Stephen Spender is a writer who writes somewhere in 1940s. You must understand that when he's writing in 1940s, by that time actually, towards the middle and towards the end of that particular decade, the world had already seen two world wars. Now, these two world wars were definitely had a very devastating effect, not just physically but emotionally, upon the people. World had seen how numerous people had died, and these people had died and had left their families completely shattered. Right, there was an immense loss of property that had taken place. At the same time, there was also this whole issue of questioning of human existence that had come into the minds of many people, because humans' life seemed so cheap, it seemed so unimportant. People just could die with somebody sitting in an office pressing a button of the nuclear weapon. Okay, and we know that what had happened, how World War II had come to an end, was actually when America had bombed two major cities of Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in which so many people had died. So this was just one episode of World War II. But after both the world wars, the world had seen a lot of, I would say, insecurity and destruction, and this would definitely given it would arise within them a feeling of who we actually are. Are our lives so cheap? So definitely people had by that time started questioning the authority of God, and they had also started to question their faith in the religion and spirituality, which had not played any major role in saving the world with this kind of destruction. Right, so definitely when you look at these writers who are writing in that particular time, including Stephen Spender, you find that they present a very bleak picture of human society in their writings or in their poems. This particular poem is also about the same idea. Here you find this particular poem, which tells you, as the name itself suggests, an elementary school classroom in a slum. So this is going to present to you a picture. It's the poem is going to take to you towards a class which happens to be an elementary class, so which means the students would be somewhere from the age of 8 to 14, and maybe below than 8 also. Elementary classes are generally class 8 student up to generally in today's sense. So I'm just expecting these students to be somewhere between 5 to 14, not more than that. So they're quite young. At the same time, the way this particular classroom has been depicted is something which represent or which tells you a lot about Stephen Spencer's view of human society, which has arisen because of a certain because of certain incidents that had taken place in the world by that time. Right, so when you look at these particular classrooms, you don't really find them very entertaining, you don't really find them very interactive, you don't find these children as children generally are expected to be. So when we look at the children are generally very noisy, generally very hyperactive, and extremely questioning, extremely interactive. But here the children are a completely different sort. You don't find these children having any of these personality traits. So let us see how this particular poem is representing this classroom and of human society. But what I'm today doing is that I'm just discussing first two stanzas of the poem, because if I do all the four stanzas, then the video will get unusually longer and you will get bored. You will not watch the video completely. So I'm just picking up first two stanzas today. Therefore, I'm reading stanza by stanza as I'm reading. Okay, so when you are supposed to go through the poem, please read the poem completely first. Do not just read one stanza and try to understand the meaning of it. That you should never do. So read the complete poem first, all the four stanzas. If important, if you find it is necessary, then give it a multiple number of readings and then try to understand. So I'm just beginning to read the first stanza. Please follow along. And if you have any notebook or please do keep a notebook and a pencil with you so that you can keep on taking notes. And if you have the book, that will be all the more better because I'm carrying the book with me. Please keep your books, otherwise if you have the e-copy with you, that also can help you. Anyway, I'm just reading the first stanza. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair turned down their pallor, the tall girl with her fade down head, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heirs of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarly disease, his lessons from his desk. At back of this dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in treat room other than this. Right. So here basically few students have been uh, presented before you. It's a classroom, but it's a classroom of a slum area. Now, who inhabits slum area? Those who basically do not have very good economic resources. Rather, they are below the poverty line, and generally, this class schoolroom, then in the schools and their classrooms, you cannot expect them to be highly interactive and highly informative as generally the schools of rich people would be like. Okay, so it's a school which is basically made up, it's a school which is basically designed for the students or for the children of those who are poor, those who are not economically well off. So how are these schools classroom is like, or what kind of interactions to go through? Let us move once again that far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces like rootless weed, their hair torn down their pallor. Okay, far, far away from gusty waves. Gusty waves are strong waves, strong waves. So if you have ever noticed a wave in a sea, then you would find that when a wave starts coming, and it attains its maximum height, it is absolutely powerful, it is very powerful. But then these children are not at all like that strong wave, not at all, because that strong wave can push anything out of the sea and it can take anything within it, it's inside the sea. But these children are not, there's absolutely no strength available is visible on the faces of the children. Rather, they are like rootless weeds. Now weeds, weeds are unwanted plants that we generally get in the places, it could be a garden, it could be the fields. But then even those weeds are rootless, which means there are no proper nutrition with the even the weeds which need can be attained. So these children have been compared with, first of all, they are not compared with, or they contrasted with the image of a gusty wave, but then they are compared with that of a rootless weed, a weed which does not have any life in it. And even if it would have any life, it's a weed, it's useless, right? We do not want weeds in our gardens, or we don't want weeds in our fields. They're generally just plucked off and thrown away. So then they are like rootless weeds, they don't have any first of all anchor in their life. You can also see it as in many ways. You can see it as lack of nutrition, you can also see it as having no base to the ground. So it's as if they do not know what it is that they should aim their life towards. The hair torn down their pallor, so their hairs are all coming, they're badly combed, they're not looking like students, not at all. Their hairs are, it is a very clear indication of how unkempt they are not at all taking properly, they've not been able to take care of their hygiene, and all the hairs are coming down on the faces which are looking pale. Now the paleness of the face is also an indication of the lack of nutrition or of the malnutrition, right? The tall girl with her weight down head. So then there is a reference to a girl who is sitting in the class. This is one of the students in the class, and this is tall. She is very tall, and but then her hair, the head is weighed down like this. Okay, now the head is weighed down. It could be a reference to again a malnutrition state, and she is not able to concentrate on what is being happening in the class or what is being taught in the class. So due to the weakness, due to the malnutrition, she's not even able to just raise her head up and see at the board or at the teacher. She's not able to do that. Her head is just like it's a very lethargic condition that a student can have, and you can understand what kind of fun learning can go on for this girl who is just feeling so lethargic with her head weighed down. So this could be a result of the malnutrition. The paper seaming boy. Now there is this another reference to the paper seaming boy, a boy who is also one of the students of the school, of the classroom, and he's as thin like a paper. Like a paper is extremely thin, isn't it? There is no thickness in the paper. Similarly, the boy is also like a paper, is paper seaming, and there is nothing in his body, is extremely thin. Once again the indication of the malnutrition. With rat size, how his eyes are very small. rats rat size, it's very reddish, smallish eyes, so he does not have the big eyes, but then he has very small eyes. And the small eyes could refer to many things. See, it could also refer to big eyes, which means a bigger eyes, or with a well opened eye, it could mean to a highly imaginative faculty that one has. It could also have about the hopeful eyes, but that small eyes could be like there is no hope in the life, or the eye is not able to dream well, or there are no dreams in the life of this boy, or of course, which is one important thing, is that this kind of physique is nothing but the indication of how poorly these students or these children are fed at their families. Okay, they do not have right amount of food to eat which could keep them healthy and beautiful, because children are naturally beautiful. They do not need any other kind of makeup to be beautiful, but provided they have a good health. The paper seeming boy with rat's eye, the stunted, unlucky air of twisted bones. Right? They could be a reference to the same boy, or it could be a reference to yet another boy in the class who is having a disease which is bone related, and the bones are twisted. So, this disease could be related to the bones, in which the bones get very easily twisted, which is indication of how poorly the body suffers from the deficiency of calcium, right? Which is, again, as I told you, is indicative of the malnutrition, is indicative of the very poor economical conditions that they come from, and is an indication of how their families are not able to feed them well. Okay, so what he has got from his father as legacy is the Narnal disease. So he has got a disease from his father, as opposed to the children of rich families who get properties, who might get another financial benefits from their parents in legacy. But this child has only received a disease. So he is very uninterestingly just reciting his lessons from his desk. So probably there's a teacher in the class. The teacher is giving some lesson, and these children who was completely uninterested, and they're uninterested because they do not have a right health to them with them. So they're completely uninterested, and they do not, they're very in a very boring way, or in a very uninteresting way. They're just reciting their lessons, and they do not intend to learn anything, they do not intend to understand anything. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in a tree room other than this. Now, at the end of this particular stanza, there is a little hope that is being. Till now, you have just seen these 3 4 students who are who's this girl who is very tall, but then her head is weighed down, and there is this boy who has paper seaming, is very suffering from the malnutrition, probably the same boy suffering from the problem of twisted bones also. But then there is one boy in the class who's young, unnoted and sweet. Okay, so nobody has noted him, probably, or probably he has not been noted by the diseases. He's still not fallen into the trap of malnutrition. Probably he is still enjoying good health. And how do you know he's enjoying a good health? Because his eyes live in a dream. He still can dream. Now imagine children. If the 20 children are sitting in your class, or like, from the age group of 6 to 12, can you imagine these children very silently sitting and listening? No, they will keep on talking. Why? Because that kind of activity is present within them. they are active to that level. It is difficult for the teacher to engage them in the right manner. Therefore, teachers do a lot of things to engage them positively, right? If you leave them just to themselves, then obviously they will make a lot of noise, which is actually the sign of a good health, which is a positive sign about their body, about their sound mental health, and about their sound emotional health. But here, all the students have a very bad physical, mental, and emotional health, except for this one student whose eyes can still dream. So he's also not paying attention to his lessons. He's just thinking about some squirrel game in a tree room, which means he still has his imaginative faculty intact. He can still imagine, he can still dream, which means there's still life in him, which is a sign of positivity. Okay, so as you look at the first stanza, you get the depiction of the students in a classroom, and this classroom is filled by the students who basically come from some area. They come from a very lower middle class, or probably a very poor economical background students who are not able to do well in their lives because their bodies suffer from the malnutrition, and which is very clear indication of how their parents are not able to feed them well. Now, this is how the depiction begins. As I told you, that when these writers who are writing after the Second World War, they generally depict as a very bleak and a very grey picture of society. So it's not all the positive things that Stephen Spender is presenting here, but for there is one exception that he has presented here is in the form of a sweet young boy who is still unnoted by the difficulties of life, by the realities of life, which probably he might very soon be get into the trap like other students have got. But till now, at least, he is unhealthy and he's enjoying. He's daydreaming about the squirrel game in a tree room. Now, tree room is nothing but a kind of a room, a kind of a small space which is made upon the tree. Now, generally, the children would go up there and play. For them, it's a nice place. It's a place of playing. So, this is generally constructed by the parents of a wealthy family, maybe of a middle class family also. It could be made up. But then this is a separate place for children to play. Okay, for them it is quite excited to go up there in the tree room, play, and then come back. For them that is sort of an adventure. So he's just now imagining that he's imagining himself to go up there in the tree room and play and then coming back. So this is once again, I would say, a positive sign of life within this little child, right? So let us now move towards the second stanza. After this, I'll just leave you here. So let us look. I'm very quickly reading out. Please follow in your books if you have it. On sour cream walls, donations. Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized storm writing all cities. Belt flowery Tyrolese valley. Open-handed map awarding the world its world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all the futures painted with a fog, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. So, in this particular stanza, now the speaker is taking us towards the physical appearance of the classroom. Till now, he has depicted how the students are looking up. Now, he's trying to depict how the classroom, the classroom looks like. So there are a variety of things in the classroom. Let's go through them one by one. On sour cream walls, donation, right? So how is this school being created? Or how is it that the schools in the slum areas, or for the people of, or for the students, or for the children of the poor people, are being created? By the donations of by the rich people. So these people have given, the rich people have given donations. They have donated money, or probably the building, and that's how the school has got created. But which it immediately tells you a great, you know, gap between the riches and the poor. The poor get fed up, or they get patronized by the rich people, right? So there are rich people who have money, they patronize them, and only then they are able to go to a school. But what kind of a school is this? Is this a very happy place to go to, or the children look very happy here? Well, the obvious answer is no. because on sour cream walls. So the color of the walls is very colorless. It's not a bright color. Generally, when you go to the primary students classrooms or in the school, you would find, the colors are painted in very different colors. The walls are painted in very different colors. Why? Because different colors will refer to altogether a different world of color, of life, or happiness, of experience, of learning. But here the walls are very discolored. They're not very happily painted, or they're not very brightly painted. Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome writing all cities. So then there are certain pictures probably which are put on the classroom, on the walls of the classroom. And what are these pictures? This is the picture of one very famous English 16th century English dramatist, William Shakespeare. We all know his importance and his contribution to English literature. Shakespeare himself had never been to school, but today, if you have to complete your MA in English or any basic degree in English literature, you just cannot do it without reading this man who had never read anything, and who was not highly educated, right? So he was so important, right? So his picture is being hanged over there in on one of the walls of the classroom. Cloudless at dawn, there is yet another painting pertaining to nature, beauty of nature. Civilized Rome, writing all cities. Then there is picture of all those civilized societies. Where the buildings have the dome over them. So dome is, what a dome is. It's a semicircular kind of structure which generally over the in the middle and over the top of the building. So this is all the examples of highly civilized notions in society. To know Shakespeare, to understand Shakespeare, you have to know the language well. You need to know the culture of the times when Shakespeare is writing. One needs to be educated enough to understand who Shakespeare is, right? And then at the same time, then there is this picture of nature, a cloudless dawn. Dawn is the very early period of the morning when the sun has just started rising up. And also the picture of societies which have been very advanced in their time. So all these pictures are hanging there, but what purpose are these? Generally, the purpose of these pictures should have been to teach the students and to make them more aware and exposed to the variety of cultures, be it the culture of 16th century England, be it any other society in the world. But is it actually serving its purpose? Are the teaching aids which have been hung there on the table serving their purpose? Probably not. Belt, Flowery, Tyrolese Valley. So when you look at for Tyrolese Valley, there is this annotation which is given at the end of the poem, which means that pertaining to Tyrol, an Austrian alpine province. So, Belt Flowery Valley. So it's once again a Tyrol valley, which is extremely beautiful, and the picture has been hung over there. Also, open-handed map awarding the world its world. So there is this open-handed map, a map which is hung over there, which is telling the world what the world is like, right? It is the map which tells us our location in the whole of the world. It is the map which tells the complete world that this is what our world looks like, isn't it? And yet for these children, these windows not this map the world. Okay, so now they should have been reading this particular map. They should have been trying to study this particular map to know what their positions are in the world, but probably they do not know how to read the map, or they have never noticed how to read the map. And for them, what is their world? Not the map. Okay, not the map through which they would have known that they belong to a country called India, or whatever the country it is. It's not probably written in the Indian context. Stephen Spender is definitely not writing about India, but whichever country is writing about, is an English writer, is writing about his own country. They must actually be trying to know what their position in the world is, but then they do not know about it. All they know about their world is that, whatever is visible outside the windows of the classroom, that's what their exposure is basically limited to. So they have not been able to move beyond that. They understand their world, how it looks like out of their windows, and not through the map. This is what I'm trying to get at. Were all their futures painted with a fog, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far from riverscapes and stars of words. So then, how is the classroom and how is the area around that particular school? It's a very narrow street, a street which is very narrow. Narrow means when the breadth, the width of the street is not it's not very big width. It's a small narrow street. So once again you can see the shrinking walls, the walls which are like shrinking like this narrow street. And it has been completely covered with a lead sky. Lead sky, it could refer to a polluted sky, it could refer to the atmosphere which is filled, or the air which is filled with lead, which is definitely not a good sign, because it is once again reflection of an unhealthy environment, of a polluted environment. And in such an environment, what future do these children have? Because they are still, when they're young in their lives, they're so hungry, they're so malnutrition, they don't have any imagination power, they're not taking an interest in their learning. What kind of a future to have? They do not have any future, because all their future has been painted with a fog. You know what fog is? Fog is something that appears during winters, which makes the visibility very poor, not able to, you're just able to see that white appearance around you, and there is nothing visible beyond that. This is how their futures is being painted. It's been painted with the fog. So this is how their physical environment around the school has been. Now look at what are the three important things that the poet has now, till now, he has explained to us. First is the physical appearance of the children. Second is the physical appearance of the classroom, with all the particular references to the teaching aids which are being kept over there. And third is the physical surroundings of the school, okay, which are not very good. You can find them, the school being located probably at the end of a very narrow street, and the street is completely covered with the lead, and it is an indication that these children are not going to learn anything fruitful. There's nothing positive that is going to turn on their lives, because their lives are very very far from rivers, from caves, and from star of boards. Hmm? so so all these natural environment which fill us up with lot of positivity, which fill us up with lot of with lot of good attitude in our life, all these things are very much away from what these children are at right now, at this particular time of their life. So they have no contact with any kind of goodness. What is goodness? The goodness is been basically expressed through the natural elements like river, like caves, and the star of words. Star of words, sorry, stars of words, basically. Words, what are words? Words are language, isn't it? If you connect them in the right manner, they take form of a language. And what is language? Language is something which gives you a freedom to express yourself. That is why language is extremely important. And therefore, these stars, these words are like stars, stars which are very far off in the sky, but still they look very beautiful, isn't it? They look very beautiful on a cloudless night. So they are extremely away from all these things, not at all in touch with all these things. So when the first stanza began, there was this contrasting image presented by the speaker to of the students who were like far away from gusty waves. And at the end of the second stanza also, he is closing the second stanza approximately in the same style of writing, saying that far from rivers caves. So once again, this usage of the word far is basically to tell you that there is a lot of difference, and there's a big distance between the lives of these children and the beauty of the nature. There's absolutely unconnected with them, completely unconnected with rivers, with like strong waves, with capes, and with words, and with like stars. So don't have this beauty in their lives, because these are the things which are the source of real beauty, a beauty which stays forever. Right. So this is what the first two stanzas all about. Please read them again. If you have any doubt, you need to ask me, and you also need to write down the interpretation of these two stanzas from your perspective. This the analysis which I shared with you is my perspective. You can definitely challenge it, provided you are able to support your own argument with the sufficient evidences from the textbook. Please do that. Write it down, get back to me as soon as possible. And once again, I'll just be back with yet another video on the next two stanzas. And as you can see, the video is going to be approximately half an hour long. I hope you have learned something out of this video, and next two stanzas will be uploaded in the next video. Till then, take care of yourself. Thank you so much.